Welcome, OD professionals, to this week's vlog. Today I have Kristi Spaethe, guest with me, because she and I are going to be doing a presentation at this upcoming Oklahoma Business Ethics Consortium in Tulsa on Thursday, May 17th. It's going to be downtown at the DoubleTree. It goes from 11:30 to 1, and we'd love for you to join us. And our topic is MeToo and how we can and maybe should respond to this historic moment. So, Kristi and I we've both gone through a bit of job transition. Some of you know about mine, but Kristi also recently is out in the world of consulting and bringing her expertise to the world. And we were meeting, and it almost kind of popped up
kind of organically.
Organically, just in conversation. Maybe it's something we heard on the radio, but we're talking about Me Too. And we both had the thought, why don't we do this together? Because I've seen men talk about this, which is actually a little weird. I've seen women talk about it, which is not weird, but it's hard. I've seen men be somewhat reticent, kind of just stay in their shells, like they couldn't really get into the conversation. For whatever reason, we felt it was important to bring a male-female perspective to the game. So anyway, we're going to give it a shot. We hope you'll join us. So with that, we're going to give you an overview today so you can make a good choice for yourself. Kristi, why don't you bring people up to speed, big picture on kind of Me Too, where we are right now?
Sure. So I'm sure that we have all heard of the movement in some way in the news recently. The Me Too movement, actually that phrase was coined in 2006 by Tarana Burke as a way to allow female victims of sexual assault a coping mechanism. It was revived. Alyssa Milano actually kind of revived that phrase in October of 2017 around the accusations with Harvey Weinstein. That's really where it started, and it's unfolded ever since. Just recently, I got my Fortune magazine in the mail last week, and their top 50 leaders, the Me Too movement is named as number 3. So it has not stopped unfolding. People are not finished talking about it. We're not finished moving the needle in regards to the Me Too movement.
We're still uncovering stuff.
Right.
Yesterday, now, of course, if you see this video in a few months, this won't make any difference. But literally yesterday, the Attorney General of New York resigned for also for violence against women. And so just when you think, can we see something weirder, it comes up again. So we do have, this is deeper than Hollywood. It's cultural, that goes way deep, at least in our society, and hits all facets.
There are a lot of talks right now around the Me Too movement, as there should be. We've both found that a lot of those talks are focusing on only the sexual harassment piece of the Me Too movement, which is very important, and our talk covers as well. However, we both thought that there's maybe a bigger picture conversation that we could have in regards to this movement. In the HR circles, which is where I run, most of those professionals are familiar with how to do an investigation and how to handle claims. We can absolutely help some leaders that maybe aren't familiar with those processes. However, we still come back to the bigger picture, which is really where we're going to spend most of our time next week.
Mm-hmm. So one of the things that we're doing, we're actually reviewing briefly what is the case for gender diversity at all. There is actually recent brain science and studies that show the different gifts that men and women bring to the game, not as a way of boxing people in, just to say, wow, there's true richness the more we are together and the more that we're truly equally represented in the workforce. There's lots of studies that show that when that happens, that helps business out. So since it's a good thing on a whole lot of levels, what can we do to change the dynamic? And so I think there is a place to talk about, your harassment, your training, and so forth. Like we called it reactive in the presentation.
Right. However, that's not where we spend the majority
a little bit of time.
Of our time, right? We're always available to talk after if that's something that you have questions on. We chose to spend a lot of our time on kind of the proactive address. So how do you structure in this change? What are the things that you can do with your training, your policies, procedures? What kinds of conversations do you need to be having in the workplace? And then also, I'll turn it over to you.
Culture. So that's part of the thing that we each also bring. While we play in the world of people, Kristi is an HR professional and has been doing that her whole professional life. So really, the structures, the policies and procedures, the hiring practices, the pay, and how you do that is an important piece, but it's not the only piece. And the piece, as you know, that I've played in is in the world of culture. So how do we take that, do the structure piece, do it well, but also get people thinking and talking differently? We'll challenge two things right up front. People say that changing organizational culture is hard. That's a lie. I'm sorry, it's misguided. It's not a lie, but it's misguided. And that changing organizational culture takes a long time. That is also misguided. It does not have to do that. What is fundamentally required is executive commitment. So we spend a bit of time in next week's presentation talking about what that looks like and how you sponsor different conversations in your organization. And we bring it to what individual men and women can do as well. Do you want to say anything from the female perspective on that?
I think that by the time we get to the end of the presentation, we've almost created this possible consensus that men need to step up and they need to kind of help us in this conversation. But that does not mean that we get to sit back, which we wouldn't anyway, but that we get to sit back and kind of let them guide this the rest of the way. So there are definite takeaways for the ladies in the room and things that we can be doing, not just in our organizations, but in our personal life as well.
And there's specific things that I will challenge the guys, ways that what it means to be an ally. That term has been used quite a lot. But how do you really step in and be a positive force in your world, wherever that is? So that's kind of where we wrap up the presentation. One thing that we both include, though, which I think is important, want to share with you, this is not a, hey, what could we put together a training on? Oh, well, let's do it on this. There's a heartfelt reason. So just to finish, why are you doing this?
I have a lot of reasons for doing this. I happen to be a woman, so this is pretty close to my heart. But I also happen to be attempting to raise a strong woman. I'm sure we've all as parents felt like that briefly, that we're attempting. But when she came into my life 6 years ago, my kind of journey on my career path changed. And I have just recently determined that it changed because I'm trying to pave a way for her. I want to remove any obstacles that I've had to go through so that it's not quite as tough for her.
And mine is similar. I have two girls and a young man, and they're now 26, 24, and 20. But for all three of them, all of them will benefit when we have greater gender equity. So it's something I'm personally committed to, personally excited about, and will actually have a really fun time. We got a chance to present this yesterday for another group, and it went very, very well. People were staying after and loving it. So that's our invitation. Please join us next week. And if you have any thoughts or comments, I'll also post this on the YouTube channel. So feel free to put in your thoughts. Thanks again. See you next week.